Welcome to the latest episode of Branding the Experience, where we discuss ways where we can create environments where employees actually want to come to work and customers want to keep coming back. Hi, I'm Ken Bader, your host for Branding the Experience, and you caught me watching an interview I just did a day or two ago at the Southern California Credit Union Alliance Conference with Dave DeFazio, partner at StrategyCorps, who did a wonderful presentation on bringing technology into the experience. In fact, the name of this particular episode and the first line in his presentation, which was spot on, is Experience Trumps Service. Let's listen in. I'm here with Dave DeFazio, partner of StrategyCorps, and we're going to talk about branding the experience from another angle. Dave, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Glad to have you. Well, I have to say that I had the pleasure to hear your presentation on technology and, most importantly, how to use that to create an experience. And the opening statement that you had with your slide encapsulates a lot of the things that I try to teach on this show, which is experience trumps service. Can you talk a little bit about what you mean by that?
Yeah, sometimes it's a little controversial. People hear that I'm saying bad words about service. That's not what we're saying. Service is still important. However, there's sometimes a tagline that I add on to it, is that a person's last experience is their new expectation.
Right.
And I always give an example of that. So I'm an Amazon junkie. I order things on Amazon all the time. And now that's set an expectation about how I think online ordering and retailing should work. So if I find my way somehow to another site to buy a product and I'm ordering it online, if somebody wants to charge me a shipping fee, I'm like, what's going on here? Where's the 2-day shipping, right? If somebody doesn't make it easy for me to get notifications about when my shipments are arriving, I'm like, what's going on here? Where's my order? So they've changed the way that I think ordering in an online environment, in a mobile environment, should work.
Right.
And so I think that, if we're thinking about the experience of banking, that we have to start thinking about those same kinds of things. And it's not just what other banks or credit unions are doing, it's that Amazon's rewiring my brain to change how I just think things work in general.
Right.
And so when I say experience trumps service, it's that our brains and our expectations in a mobile world are changing by the minute practically.
Right, right. Yeah, it's interesting in talking about experience in banking. And one of the clients and guests that we've had on this show is COPFCU, and they have a great tagline. And it's great because they live that tagline, and it's banking on a first name basis. And one of their millennial professionals challenged me in a very, very good way. He says, well, we have all this personal touch in banking on a first name basis and how we engage our people. But how do we, how do we also bring in the technology, bring in all of the digital pieces that we need in order to survive as a financial institution? And the thing that I mentioned to him was, I think we're actually a lot closer than you think. The answer to the question isn't an either or, do we still engage face to face, or do we have technology? The question is, how do we make banking on a first name basis in a technology experience? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so one of the things the stories I tell is that the way that our relationships connect with our members is changing. And so in the past, the story I tell is that we've always been able to count on, if we're going to go make a purchase, if I'm a customer today and I walk into a store, I'm going to whip out my debit card, I'm going to pay for that transaction, and bam, there's my financial institution's logo, constantly reminding me of the role that they play in my life to make that transaction happen, right? But that interaction is disappearing, right? So if I do an Uber transaction, if I go make an Amazon transaction, if I go buy something on iTunes, I'm never reaching for my wallet anymore. And so said another way, because of those disappearing interactions, we've got to find other ways to connect with people when they're outside the four walls of our branches. And so, technology is a great enabler that way. The big banks in particular are investing in that. I have a banker friend and he says that what he's trying to think about is how to just engage beyond the typical boundaries of banking. So what kinds of interestingly different things can you do so that when people have their faces in their phone, in some way you're making an engagement connection that's there.
Right.
That's the big challenge.
In your work with your clients in trying to, in my words, maybe not yours, introduce technology to create an experience or enhance, frankly, an already good or great experience, what are some of the challenges that you see with your clients in being able to make that integration and make it an experience?
Yeah, so the message that I had here at the conference was that I get a chance to go around the country and I get to visit with people and talk about all the things that I'm trying to discover and learn about with apps and new technologies and trends. And I always say I'm a little bit shocked almost that when I'm mentioning all these things, sometimes I get a little bit of a deer in the headlights like that. So I think there's just an awareness that we've got to do a better job of understanding all the things that are happening. So my joke is, hey, if you were going to build a branch in France, you'd want to learn a little French, right? So
probably a good idea.
So my opening question at the conference was, do you believe that millennials and mobile are going to play an increasingly important role in our industry? Every single person raised their hand. So if you believe that millennial and mobile are important to our future, then you've got to learn that language too. So I think the biggest challenge is just getting leadership teams to focus in on what is experience in today's world. And there's so many things happening around us, things that the big banks are doing, things that the fintech disruptors are doing. I don't think they're going to put us out of business. They're just changing the way that our members think that financial services can work. And so we've got to go out and study those things and then just ask ourselves, what are we doing? What are we learning from all the things around us? And how does that change our members' expectation about the experience?
Right. It's interesting that you mentioned trends, and a number of the folks that watch our show are in banking and financial services, and then others are just simply small businesses and other service-based industries. And was talking to a fellow entrepreneur just last week, and we were saying, is the face-to-face networking dead? Are the chambers dead? And I was saying to her, I said, the next thing was video, and now video, much like this show, is everywhere. You can get all types of video content and education. And I was telling her, it's like, what's that next thing? Maybe we can be part of that next thing. And we kind of spitballed a little bit and said maybe it's making that one-on-one connection, but maybe it's through a Skype or another app and so forth. What may be the one trend that you do see that clicks in your mind is, yeah, you know what? There's something here. This may be the next big thing.
Yeah. So I think that when I look at my own phone and my own experience and my favorite apps and just the way that apps are changing, right now there's a movement to try to make things just as simple as possible, and it relates to what you're talking about. You're talking about visual, experiential, kind of natural language things, right? So right now there's a movement in our industry. This is going to be the year for what I call hands-free banking, right? And so Bank of America has made an announcement. They're launching an enhancement to their mobile app. They call it Erica, Bank of America, Erica. That's pretty smart.
Yeah.
And so if you go out and Google Bank of America, Erica, you'll see one of their executives standing on a stage demonstrating, instead of tap, 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 click, 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 and all the complicated things that you can do inside of an app, it's just a person interacting with their natural voice.
Right.
And it's using some artificial intelligence, and there's some pretty complex things, like the screenshot that they shared shows the app giving a person some financial advice about how much extra they should be putting on their credit card payment to reduce their debt. Which, when you think, that's kind of a complicated recommendation, right?
Right.
And so it's using voice and text and more natural ways to make that user interface more familiar to everyday users.
Sure.
So that's going to take off this year. Now we're seeing some of these in-home devices where people are using their voices. So I demonstrated an Amazon Alexa on stage and showed some cool things that Capital One is doing. And so, to me, I'm most interested in voice technology. What are apps doing to get the clicks out of the way to make it just super natural for people to get things done?
Right. Interesting. Yeah, I'm a Gen Xer, and I'm like just barely keeping up with some of the technology. I'm probably just a little bit behind, and my phone the other day just automatically updated something to a Google app that I never had before. And all of a sudden I said, well, let's see how this works. Usually I would tap that little microphone and say, give me directions to the nearest coffee shop, or usually for me it's the nearest tavern or whatever it is. And I tried it the other day. I said, Google, give me directions to Pachanga Casino and Resort. It's like, okay, whoa, it works. It actually really talks back to me. Last question for you. In your experience in dealing with banks and credit unions and small business, and it's my belief, frankly, that practically every credit union is simply just another small business, what is the one piece of advice that you would give in order to integrate technology and create a true consistent experience?
Yeah, like one of the things that I talk a lot about is just, what is the mobile mission of your credit union, right? So I talk to so many executive teams, and look, they're doing things. So if we look back, mobile banking hasn't been around that many years.
Correct.
And so, the fact is that those giant banks had big budgets. They raced out to a lead. They're winning way more than their fair share of the switchers, and so the catch-up game was on, right?
Right.
So people are spending money. They're doing a pretty good job. They're getting new functionality, onto people's devices, helping them do things. But I don't think that we're doing enough to think a move or two ahead. Okay. So for example, some of the pressure that's putting on us as an industry is that J.D. Power, right? They're the ones that monitor satisfaction across lots of industries. Well, they've been monitoring satisfaction with mobile banking since its inception. So every year, mobile banking satisfaction is going up, going up, going up, until in 2015, mobile banking satisfaction fell.
Wow. And
what people are saying is that now it's starting to get a little bit too complex. We're adding too many features too quickly. I'm not quite sure how to do this. Like, how do I make a person-to-person payment, and how does the person receive it? And so I'm getting to a point here. The point is, let your members and your customers in on the secret, right? Have a mission. Just get that out to them. Teach them. And so there's some amazing YouTube videos out there. There's a bank in Denver that's called First Bank, and they're a little bit silly and they goof off a little bit, but their mission is clear. They just want, through humor, they're trying to educate their base and pull them along and say, hey, look over here. Come discover some new things that you can do with your phone to make your banking easier.
Right.
And it's so funny. Like, they had for a while, their mobile banking spokesperson was an Amish person. So let that sink into your mind for a moment. So they're not taking themselves too seriously, and their mission is to get their customers in on the secret. So that'd be maybe my lasting message.
No, that's spot on. A lot of times I talk about letting your employees in on the secret and letting them in on the entire plan. Probably not a bad idea to actually let your customers or members in on the secret as well.
For sure.
Well, thank you for letting us in on some of your expertise, Dave.
Thank you. That means a lot.
I really appreciate it. So, if you've watched this show before, you know what my ubiquitous question is going to be is what can we learn from that? What can we learn from Dave? And as always, there's a ton of stuff there. But if I had to pick one thing, and this applies whether you're a credit union, bank, financial service provider, restaurant, hair salon, some type of pampering business, any type of service-based business, is what is that next thing? Yeah, what is that next thing for your business? How can we use the technology available to us to engage with our member, customer, client just a little bit better? To be able to truly engage them, and it doesn't necessarily have to be expensive. You know, much like I talked about with Dave in this interview, you know, I'm talking to fellow entrepreneurs and consultants and speakers and say, you know, well, what's the next big thing? You know, there's tons of video like this out there, and articles and podcasts and everything else. You know, what is that next thing? And ironically, in this same conference, another individual, you know, talked about not just millennials, but talked about Generation Z, who are getting pretty close to their 20s. So as employees and customers, we need to start thinking about them. And one of the aspects of Gen Z is face-to-face. And so I kind of took that back in my discussion with some of my colleagues of what's the next thing. And I think maybe that next thing is the face-to-face. Maybe instead of texting, maybe it's a Skype on the phone. Maybe it's FaceTime. Maybe it's a, hey, your spa appointment is in 15 minutes. You know, hi, I'm your masseuse, Julie, or whatever it is. Or maybe it's a quick video message from your financial institution of your loan docs are ready, Mr. Smith. You can come in anytime tomorrow before 7 p.m. and we can get this done for you. Maybe that's the next step, or maybe it's something else for your unique service-based business. But whatever that is, you know, think of what's next and think about how you can incorporate the new technology, the existing technology, in a resourceful way, not necessarily expensive way, to create a branded experience on multiple levels. And remembering, and I'm going to steal that line from Dave, is that experience trumps service. Thank you for spending some time with me today, and here's hoping that your experience trumps any service out there for any of your customers. Take care.